Today, I'm going to talk about the Sony 16 to 25 millimeter f2.8 G lens, a small travel-friendly f2.8 zoom that has close focusing, has 11 blade apertures, weighs 400-ish grams, 67 millimeter filters, and costs $1,200. So that means that you can buy this lens and you won't get kicked out of the house by your wife. But aside from that, why would Sony create this lens other than the fact that it's going to make them a lot of money? It's because they've been making these smaller lenses for these A7C style cameras, and this one just made sense. But it also has an overlapping range, which we're going to talk about. There are other lenses that already fall in this range, and lenses by Sony like the 12 to 24 f4G, the 12 to 24 f2.8 GM, and the 16 to 35 millimeter f2.8 GM2. And why wouldn't you get these other lenses compared to the G? And that's because they are significantly larger, and they will definitely get you kicked out of the house because they cost a lot more. Tamron has the 17 to 50 millimeter f4, and unfortunately, it is also a lot larger, so it is comfortably outside of the range. But there are other lenses involved here. This is not a closed ecosystem. You know, the Sony's ecosystem is kind of ridiculous. We've got the 16 to 28 millimeter f2.8. This lens is nearly the same size, it's a little bit larger. It is 2.8, so this lens has even more range and it costs less. The downside is that it's slightly larger, 72 millimeters. Next up, we have the Tamron 17 to 28 millimeter f2.8. This has been out for a while. You can find these used for extremely cheap, and the optics are very high level. It gives up 1 millimeter on the wide end, however, gains 3 more on the tele. It's only 3 millimeters extra on the telephoto, which probably doesn't make as much as the wide. It's a basic lens. It is internal zooming, and it's similarly sized with a 67 millimeter filter thread, and it's not much longer. It is going to be a little bit longer, not much, if any. Okay, so Sony has to contend with their very own 16 to 35 millimeter f4 PZ. Now this lens, the PZ, is around the same price or similarly in price. It has more range, it has a power zoom, and it has an internal zoom. So you're trading off range for aperture. I mean, any of these lenses that I've mentioned so far, they're going to have excellent optics. They are next level. This video is not going to be about the optical performance. And this even has one extra feature, and I'll get to it a little bit later. Sony also has to match and contend with the Tamron 20 to 40. Is going to be even smaller than the 16-25 G lens. However, the G lens is a G lens. It's hard to compare. I mean, this is as basic as it gets, like you're seeing a lady without their makeup. This lens is bare bones. It's absolutely plain Jane. No aperture ring, nothing like that, but it is f2.8. It does have some overlapping range, so you will be comparing this lens, maybe. And Sony has to compare with another item that has 5 millimeters overlapping in range. Okay, the 20 to 70. This is an amazing lens. However, this doesn't go to 16. It goes to 20. 20 is ultra wide. The 16 to 25, the scope feels a lot more narrow compared to this, which gives up 4 on the ultra wide, which is a lot. But compared to the telephoto end, you're picking up 45, is that right? 45 millimeters more, and you're giving up f2.8. So 45 millimeters and f4, this is going to create better portraits, but it's not truly a wide angle lens. This is one of these all for one for all type of lenses. You just get one and you use it and that's it. This Sony 16-25 is a lens that is going to be complementary. You're going to use this with a zoom, or you're going to use this with a longer prime. By itself, it's going from ultra wide to very wide. It is kind of an odd focal range, because if you're comparing it to, say, the 17-28s, those are borderline normal. 28 millimeters borderline normal. However, 25 is borderline ultra wide. But it also has to compare with primes. There are a lot of primes that are going to compare with this lens. You've got the Sigma 17 millimeter f4, not quite as wide, but it's tiny. You've got the Samyang 18 millimeter f2.8. It is another tiny lens. However, I don't think the Samyang will get close to matching the image quality from the 16-25. I don't see it happening. You've got the Viltrox 20 millimeters f2.8, another tiny lens, and this lens is inexpensive. You've got the Tamron 20 millimeter f2.8, sort of large. I mean, 67 millimeter filters for something like that doesn't really make sense, but it does do 1 to 2 macro, which can be nice. And then Sony is competing with themselves. The 20 millimeter f1.8G, very popular lens, but you notice this is a prime that someone can compare, they can have a zoom, a normal zoom to complement. They can have a normal prime to complement, say like a 35 1.4 GM. And then there is a forgotten lens, the lens I'm filming with, the Sony 24 millimeter f1.4 GM. This overlaps just a little bit on the tele side, but this is a wide lens. You see, I'm moving around just to see the framing. It is 1.4. It costs around similar amount, and it has no range. But if you stay with this all the time, you're probably not going to be disappointed. It's been a great lens from the very beginning. And I believe the last lens that you could compare to the 16-25 is maybe the Viltrox 16 millimeters f1.8. That lens is kind of large, so you're not really comparing it. It is 1.8 though, so it is what it is. So I want to talk about the lens oddities I've noticed that nobody's been talking about, and well, maybe they have been talking about it. I just haven't watched any review videos. So the first one is the reverse zoom. It reverses out at 16 millimeters. It's kind of like this Tamron right here. At the wide end, it reverses. It protrudes at the wide end. At the telephoto end, which is not very telephoto at all, at 25 millimeters, it retracts. It is an annoying design, because especially if you're one to vlog or something, because when you're holding the lens, you're expecting it to look like this, and all of a sudden it is in your face. Well, it's protruding. Looks like that you're trying to zoom in on someone. And if you're doing that, someone might notice that, okay, this guy is like zooming. This pervert's trying to zoom in on me. But it's actually the opposite. You're pulling away. But because it protrudes, people that you're pointing this towards, they might get the wrong idea, because you're actually pulling away and making it wider. It's a small thing, but this small thing can become an annoyance over time. It's annoyed the hell out of me using this Tamron, and I had the Sigma 10-18. I got rid of it for that reason, because it was starting to annoy me. I have this other Sony. It does the same thing. It's not as annoying, the 10-18 Sony f4, because you can't see what's going on. It's underneath the hood. You take off the hood, then you can see, okay, 10 millimeters, 18 millimeters. With the hood, can't really tell what's going on. All right, but it is what it is. Another thing that I saw about the lens is that it is missing iris lock. This is the PZ. You have this iris lock right here. Okay, so when you do that, you can't spin by accident because it could be in your bag, and you can, you know, accidentally change your aperture. If you're shooting at f.8 and then you change it to the closest one, which is f22, that's kind of a disaster, right? So having this iris lock means that you can't change this aperture wheel on accident. And yeah, I just really like having that iris lock, and not having it is kind of an annoyance. Okay, so I mean, who is this lens really made for? Well, it's made for A7C users. It's made for more than that, though. It's made for people that have maybe the 24-50. It's 67 millimeters all the way through, and you have similar sizes, but you have other users that can use this lens as well. Say you don't have the 20-50, you have the 24-70 G Master Mark II. You can get this lens, and you have, let's say you have a better efficiency rating. Not only are you spending a lot less money, you don't have to spend $2,200 for a 16-35 GM2, but you're spending $1,200 for this G lens, and on top of that, you've made your kit more efficient. You know, you're not getting overlapping ranges to kind of frivolously throw away, because you might be using dual cameras, and if you have the exact range you need, you're not overpaying for a range that you don't need. You know what I mean? And for people with a 28-70 Sigma f2.8, is it going to kill you that you're missing 3 millimeters? No, it's not. So people that have the 28-75 millimeter G2, but if you're not into these other lenses, there's another reason why it could be for you. Because say you are all Sony, you shoot Team Sony, there is no other lens that is 16-25 that's going to complement your G Master. It's going to complement your 24-50 G. So it means that you are going to match the controls mostly. You're going to match color. There's a very good chance that the optics is going to match. Your focus, breathing, compensation is going to match. You're not concerned about a limitation of 15 frames per second, although an ultra wide beyond 15 frames per second is probably not needed. There are other primes, but the prime is still a prime. It's not going to zoom. 16-25 is a clearly wide and wider, but it is a very different look that you're going to get. So you're going to have a zoom. I mean, I know people are going to complain that the range is quite limited. I'm not denying it, but it is still a range that gives a unique look. And aside from that, it is a Sony lens. So that means that you will get better stabilization as well. The Sony factor is a major deal. Color, optics, breathing comp feature in the camera, stabilization and active and dynamic stabilization, that's all going to be better. Autofocus, it is what it is. Anyhow, that's all I got for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. See you in the next one. Take care.